Today my presentation is about what medtech can learn from other industries regarding designing in safety and security. Well, today there is a revolution in medical care that's making an unavoidable impact on all of our lives. And it's driving a profound transformation in healthcare that will enable us to live longer and live healthier. Technically sophisticated innovations that are nothing short of amazing are being introduced in vivo and in vitro diagnostic devices, therapeutic devices, implantable technology, and other advanced medical devices largely based on emerging micro and nanotechnology. These leaps in medical device technology, coalesced by the Internet of Things, has driven unprecedented change in life expectancy and the manner in which patients are cared for. Changes all around us in healthcare. Charles Darwin said, "It's not the strongest that survive profound change. It's not the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change will fare the best." We're in an era of medical discovery with the potential and power to revolutionize treatment for costly and debilitating diseases. As technology continues to drive the pace of progress in biomedical research and healthcare, the traditional lines between engineering and medical science grow even thinner. And as medical machines and the computers that power them become smaller, faster, and smarter, the medical device industry is making medical practice easier for doctors, more effective for patients, and cheaper for the entire healthcare system itself. Wireless technologies capable of detecting and treating the earliest signs of disease will become frontline defenses against these leading causes of death, while devices that help patients manage their own chronic conditions more effectively will dramatically improve their quality of life while reducing the demand for more advanced treatments. Over 20 billion connected devices are forecasted to be in use on the IoT by 2020. 20 billion. It's almost unthinkable to not consider the value of adding connectivity to the vision for most new embedded medical device designs. Products designed with internet connectivity have enabled remarkable advancements in medical care and telemedicine that have been made possible through the use of connected medical devices to remotely monitor, diagnose, and treat patients. We're really living in a very interesting time for healthcare. Awesome advances are happening every day across every aspect and the millions of devices that comprise the Internet of Things. But there's a devil in the detail. Here comes the devil. It doesn't matter where you are or how you're connected to the IoT. There are very few of us that are not susceptible to the risk of being compromised by cybercrime, whether it is through our computers, through connected devices we utilize in our day-to-day lives. Now healthcare is the top threat landscape and a prime target for cyber attacks. But healthcare is not the first industry to become a prime target of hackers. Our entire transportation system, including automobiles, trucking, the traffic control system, trains and the systems that control them, marine shipping, and the enormous industrial systems handling cargo at our ports, airliners, and the air traffic control system. These are all components of the IoT, and if they're not properly secured, they're susceptible to attack by cyber criminals. Manufacturing and the large-scale machines and systems they use are largely all internet connected. And they're devices, and they can be attacked if they're not securely protected. Our national power grid is weak, and is susceptible to attack, and not just by local hackers. Any of these systems can be breached by international nation-state terrorists. The next war we are engaged in will likely include attacks on the systems that we care about the most and the ones that have the most detrimental effect in our day-to-day lives. Hospitals and healthcare providers have a very special set of circumstances when it comes to protecting themselves and their patients. Healthcare has very quickly risen to the top of the charts for the most hacked industries in history, according to a report published by the Ponemon Institute called the 2017 Cost of a Data Breach Study. A high percentage of this is due to the escalating value of electronic health records to cyber criminals operating on the dark net. A single electronic health record can fetch 50 to 100 times the price of your stolen credit card data. They can get up to $500 per record. Ransomware is also a top threat to hospitals and healthcare providers. Ransomware is a type of malicious software designed to deny the user access to computer systems or devices on the network, ceasing operation of the hospital, and encrypting all the data until a ransom is paid. When hospital systems and devices become locked up by ransomware, patient care completely stops. And unfortunately, those impacted can be patients that may depend upon those devices to keep them alive. The first order of business is to get back online to care for the critically ill. Everything else becomes a moot point. More often than not, the hospital will just pay the demanded ransom amount. The payments demanded are in cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin. It's impossible to trace it. The bad actor takes the money, walks away into the sunset, free and clear. The worst part is, quite often, they don't even unencrypt your computers and data, even after you have paid them. So then you're looking at a process of days or weeks before you can resume normal outpatient care, and a lot of money. When designing a medical device, it's important to understand how devices are breached. Cybercriminals use the internet to remotely access a network. Their goal is to infiltrate the network through an exposed or vulnerable system or device for their criminal objectives. Any computer or programmable device that has an external communication capability can be used as an entry point to gain access to the organization's proprietary data, to install malware on their networks, or cause harm to assets or even people. A vulnerability is a weakness which can be exploited by a threat actor, the bad guy, to perform unauthorized actions within a computer system. These hackers build software tools and develop techniques that are usually looking for specific types of vulnerabilities in an organization's network or systems, but in their software. It may be the misuse of a certain programming construct made in product development that gives them the means to impact malware or inject malware into their organization, into the organization's systems or device operating systems. Hackers prey on code developed by weaker programmers or software that has not been adequately tested before it's released. Once a vulnerability is discovered, the attacker can then use this weakness to launch an exploit, which is synonymous with an attack on the targeted system or device. Vulnerabilities can be found in computer operating systems, application software, networking software, firmware. They can also be found in any type of connected programmable devices. They can be found in the embedded microkernel, middleware, firmware, or even in the hardware sometimes. The most desirable place to find a vulnerability is in the operating system. Once you have control of the operating system, you own the system of the device, and you can do virtually whatever you want to do. Another money-making venture for the hacker that doesn't want to get his hands dirty is to find the vulnerability and then sell it to another cyber criminal for a hefty profit. The right type of vulnerability in the right organization could sell for over $100,000, especially a zero-day vulnerability. A zero-day vulnerability is a computer software vulnerability in a product that is unknown to those who would most be interested in mitigating that problem, like the vendor or customers using the product. These are very valuable because they can be used over and over again and sold over and over again, at least until the product vendor discovers the problem and provides the fix to its clients, and the client installs the fix, which could be weeks, months, and sometimes even years. So it's a good rule of thumb, if you have a product being used on a network that doesn't have adequate cybersecurity, disconnect it. Makes sense, right? They can't get at it if it's not connected to the internet, right? Wrong. We work with a company called Netregard. They're a partner of my company, Green Hill Software, and they've established a reputation for providing high-quality offensive and defensive security services that protect clients from malicious hackers, ransomware, and damaging breaches. Protection is derived from testing network and device security with a methodology that they developed called the Realtime dynamic testing, which identifies security weaknesses and provides effective solutions to those weaknesses. These guys are a bunch of scary guys. They have 18 clients who have large healthcare providers as customers. They're in the Boston area. They were able to breach all of the hospitals that they were contracted to test. The average breach time, 4 minutes. Post-reconnaissance. Reconnaissance time ranged from 20 minutes to 4 hours. If they do ever have a challenge finding a way into a network remotely, no problem. They send a researcher in. He walks in the building like he owns the place, and he sticks one of these things, weaponized hardware implants. They look like the thing you put in your PC for a mouse. Sticks it into the USB port. I mean, we've all walked into emergency rooms. There's computers everywhere, USB ports staring in your face everywhere. He sticks it in the back of a PC, in this case, sitting on a desk in the reception area. Within 5 minutes, they were into the network. They were able to access medical devices, life-critical medical devices, electronic health records. They could even access highly confidential medical research data being used in a remote lab. So how would you stop someone from walking in with a weaponized USB stick and sticking it in a medical device or a PC? Well, like I say, we've all seen how easy it is. There's computers everywhere, rolling carts, and the whole thing. But there is a way to secure these ports. And I'm going to tell you about that a little further on in the presentation. But for now, it's clear that most hospitals do not have sufficient protection of their assets, and they may only do something about it after they suffer the pain of a substantial loss. Cybercriminals are opportunistic by nature. They're generally looking for many targets with the highest monetary payback. Cyber attacks on healthcare facilities can be a very lucrative business. Healthcare operations generally store personal health information or electronic health records that demand a very high price on the dark net. Hackers can sell electronic health records for hundreds of dollars per record, as we discussed before, to those who then participate in identity theft or maybe blackmail. It is exactly what the hacker's looking for, an easy mark with a substantial payback. Many healthcare facilities are easily breached target for almost any hacker of any skill level. This is due to a high number of reasons. The first issue is that the average healthcare facility will have a broad cyber attack surface consisting of thousands of network devices, systems, all connected that could potentially cause a threat to network security. Among them, you can generally find legacy devices and systems, and at least some of those will likely have older, outdated, unsupported, unpatched operating systems, which are loaded with vulnerabilities. I will show you in the next few slides why the device OS is so important, or the system OS for that matter. Many devices are rarely retired or withdrawn from service, which means many hospitals are still using devices designed, built 20 years ago. Many of these legacy devices have no built-in security capability at all. 20 years ago, who was hacking healthcare? I never thought of it. It'd be reasonable to prescribe that you swap out those devices with a new one with adequate cyber protection. Unfortunately, healthcare organizations cannot always afford to replace medical devices to keep up with changes in technology. We all know that. What's even more disturbing is that you may find these older legacy devices in the hospital performing a life-critical function. It's kind of a sobering thought if that device was hooked up to you or one of your loved ones. In October of this year, the FDA started directing medical device manufacturers to explicitly spell out how they will address cybersecurity in their application for FDA approval. And if not satisfied, the FDA can block approval of devices if manufacturers don't provide adequate plans for protecting the device. Yay. This is certainly a positive step forward, but it's not enough. One of the biggest problems is many medical devices are based on commercial operating systems like Windows, Linux, Android, and many certain commercial real-time operating systems, which are simply not appropriate for use in a Class 3 life-critical device. Even the latest version of these operating systems with all the up-to-date patches will only protect against inadvertent or casual attempts to breach the system's security. Those are very specific words developed by the US government. Inadvertent or casual attempts to breach the system's security, and they do not protect against a knowledgeable cyber criminal and sophisticated exploits. Another problem is unsecured open ports on medical devices and network computers. It's not uncommon for a medical device to be shipped from the manufacturer with exposed network ports, especially those related to file sharing, maintenance, and remote desktop applications. If this problem is not picked up by the healthcare facility IT guy installing the device, they have just introduced a wide open vulnerability into their network, providing easy access for hackers to compromise their operation. These are problems that all contribute to making it easy for hackers to find vulnerabilities and breach hospital systems. Then the healthcare providers, they have a whole list of stuff themselves. Whole set of perils that, I can never say this word, exacerbate the problem. Many healthcare facilities do not have dedicated full-time IT staff, or even a higher number don't have a CISO or a cybersecurity expert on staff to implement best practices when it comes to strong network and medical device security. A lot of them use third parties. Of course, a strong network security infrastructure is an absolute requirement to address the threat landscape, but that becomes a gross understatement when it comes to healthcare. Because of the ever-complex operational design of many medical devices, they're not easily protected by the conventional network security hospitals are putting in. They shouldn't even be sitting on the hospital network without additional security protocols protecting them, which might include segmentation or perhaps not being connected to the network at all. Healthcare needs to enlist their entire staff in comprehensive cybersecurity training to recognize problems like breach attempts and know how to deal with them, know what to click on and what not to click on, know how to use strong passwords, know when they should use a VPN to protect hospital data when they're communicating outside, patient records, know how to secure the systems and the computers they use, like never leaving the screen open and unlocked when they walk away from their terminal. In hospitals, they have those rolling terminals, those rolling workstations. Nurses just quite often just walk away, just leave it open. Anybody can go on, get the data they want, breach the system. Healthcare facilities are usually open to the public 24/7. Many provide some level of network access for visitors and patients to bring their own device, BYOD, and access a guest Wi-Fi. There needs to be strong segmentation between networks accessible by visitors and the networks that access critical hospital systems. Nothing stops a hacker from walking in a hospital, sitting in the lobby, spending all the time he wants to try to crack their system. Shouldn't make it easy. Maintenance personnel from outside companies servicing hospital data and patient records and servicing the assets of the hospital need to also be restricted to the systems they absolutely need access to do their job. And they should not be given carte blanche access to networks, devices, or systems not required to fulfill their responsibility. And I think the biggest one is the healthcare industry has a huge responsibility to report and record everything that it does. Daunting task. Implementing a comprehensive asset management program is key to having the ability to fulfill these responsibilities and to provide quality patient care. If you know where your medical devices are at all times, it's much less likely that they're walking out the door or being used for some nefarious reason somewhere. And when I say asset management, it's much more than tracking equipment. It's tracking equipment maintenance, ensure the latest OS patches are installed, sterilization schedules, tracking patients themselves, inventory, patients are a hospital asset, inventory management, tracking and managing pharmaceuticals, always knowing the location of critical medical devices, which you would need, which really include a huge number of small, portable, mobile devices, all of which need to be in perfect condition and ready for use at all times, especially in an emergency situation. And I think nobody knows that better than California, especially in the last year. Okay, well, I think we've established that medical devices have some very unique requirements. But are they really that unique? Well, since it's difficult to get a jet fighter or a car into most operating rooms, to prove my point, I'm going to go in another direction. If you brought a medical device out on the runway and put it next to a jet plane, and then drove a late model car out onto the same runway and parked it next to the plane and the medical device, standing back and looking at all three, there would certainly be some profound differences. However, there would also be several very ironic commonalities. All three are electronic devices. They're all largely computer software driven. All three are programmable. All three have the ability to communicate outside of themselves. They have the ability to store information, and they're all vulnerable to hackers if not secure. And now, with all kidding aside, the most important issue, your life may depend on their safe and secure operation. A few decades ago, the aerospace industry transitioned from conventional mechanical flight controls to a digital, computer-controlled, fly-by-wire architecture. I'm sure some of you have heard about that. More recently, the automotive industry has replaced much of the mechanical and hydraulic apparatus in a car with digital electronics and moved to what is now termed drive-by-wire Other industries are doing the same thing with all sorts of technology. They call it X-by-wire. For several reasons, that makes very good sense. Very much like automotive and aerospace, medical devices today are being designed to encapsulate virtually all of the functionality and the complexity within the software. With this increase in software sophistication, the functional safety and security of a medical device must become a top priority. And it has to do that right from the very outset of the design. Today, with the reality of the Internet of Things and a technologically advanced threat landscape, building in safety and security from the concept phase has never been more important. Most programmable electronic devices, especially the types of systems I'm referring to in this talk, are embedded systems. They are programmable electronic products based on one or more microprocessors of some type. It's controlling circuitry and software for the device, and that device is very likely a constituent function of a larger entity. I wouldn't say that an aircraft or an automobile itself is an embedded device, but I would claim that the automotive keyless entry system, for example, or the aircraft flight control system are both perfect examples of sophisticated embedded systems. On the screen, we're showing embedded systems from different industries, all built to control very different applications. The important point I wanted to make here is that each of these examples are built for different purposes, but they use similar components. They're all fairly powerful microprocessors, 32, 64-bit, in some case multi-core. They have similar building blocks. They all have the capability to communicate to the outside world, and they're all programmed by software to accomplish their unique task. In each case, there needs to be software that is updated from the application and controls the execution of the program and enforces control over I/O resources and security. This is generally the real-time operating system, or RTOS for short. Or it could be the embedded microkernel. It doesn't matter what the device is trying to accomplish, nor does it matter what industry it's built for. The operating system rules the house. The most important component in a device or a system. In general terms, an operating system is system software that controls the resources of a device, including the memory, CPU, the information flow throughout the device, and between the various application components. It also controls the security policy of the program because it has the ability to prevent unauthorized use of any of the resources. The operating system software is also the prime target of any hacker. If you have vulnerabilities in your operating system at the lowest level of software, that becomes the attack vector for the hacker to be able to take control of the device. Once a hacker has taken control of the device's operating system, they can steal information. They can compromise the operation of the device. They can create a denial of service situation. Even worse, they can weaponize the device to cause harm or even death to a user. Now, when you consider the increase in software complexity with medical devices, the role of security for the operating system or microkernel really is paramount. Military figured this out a long time ago. Military and aerospace knew that the embedded systems that they protected needed to be safe and secure, or our enemies would turn them against us and cause harm or death. If enemies could hack into our military systems or into our aircraft, that would be a very big problem, as you could imagine. So they determined how to secure safety-critical products through good coding standards, through use of separation kernel technology and enforcement of best practices, when it comes to rigorous testing and certification. This is the National Vulnerability Database, which is maintained by NIST, US government. It keeps a comprehensive list of vulnerabilities that have been reported in commercial operating systems, browsers, networking software, virus detection software, and real-time operating systems. Operating systems like Windows, Linux, Android, and many embedded real-time operating systems are just not appropriate for use in any safety-critical application or within a life-critical medical device. Basing a connected medical device design on a weak or vulnerable operating system framework may be suitable for devices that can't harm anybody, but not for a Class 3 medical device or any device whose unauthorized, gotta get the words right, unauthorized breach or anomalous behavior could directly or indirectly cause the loss of a life. US government words. These devices, or any device, or the operating system in these devices, only protect against inadvertent or casual attempts to breach the device security. Furthermore, their immense base of millions of lines of program code have proven to contain thousands of vulnerabilities. As I stated earlier, vulnerabilities are generally software coding errors and can allow a bad actor to install malware, seize operation of the system, or use it as a portal to gain access to other resources on the network. Over the last year, there have been over 1,000 vulnerabilities reported in Microsoft Windows, September of 2017 to September of 2018. Over 1,000 vulnerabilities. No, they're not all fixed. There have been 800 vulnerabilities reported in Linux, 1,200 reported in Android, your phones, 220 in iOS. Apple's got a little bit better. Now, sometimes an application may require the use of one of these operating systems. Good example is entertainment system in the car. They want the access, they want to use Android. They want to access all of the applications available to Android. Well, how do you do it? There are safe ways to use these operating systems, but not as the base operating system of the device. In general, many commercial RTOSs, real-time operating systems, have substantially fewer vulnerabilities reported over the last year. I can't really read the numbers. Read this way. QNX went from 39 to 44, much better. 25, 26 for VxWorks. Trust Zone from ARM, looks like 5. And Integrity, 0. Of course, there was none. So, but the problem with many of them is they don't have the capability to provide resistance to attackers with any level of sophistication or high attack potential. And hackers are getting better and better and better. They're developing devices that comb the internet looking for things to hack. They're called bots, short for robot. And they never take a vacation. They're constantly on the move. The stakes are high. At risk is patient health and safety, privacy of our stored electronic health records, and the operational integrity of our health system. Life-critical devices and our healthcare system need to be resistant to sophisticated, well-funded cyber criminals, especially those that would include nation-state terrorists or any group that would have a reason to compromise us. The way we secure an operating system, this is a very simple block diagram. And the way we do it is we pull out the critical operational tasks and separate them into partitions. Each one of those little slots is a partition. And they could only be accessed through highly secure encrypted communication. So here on the end, you have Android and the Linux Penguin. That's okay. They're in their own partition. And yes, they're accessible to the outside and can be hacked. But in a critical partition that cannot be hacked, you can refresh that operating system, rebuild it in another section of memory, and you're as good as new. And the hacker will never figure it out. And if he does, you can rebuild it again. But the most important thing is the critical components of the application don't get touched. For example, an infusion pump. It has a library of all the different kinds of drugs that it can deliver. And it has a, don't deliver more than this or less than this, because you'll kill somebody. Well, hackers get in there, they mess with that, they change the figures, they dump the drug into the patient dies. If the library and the operational control of the device is in a critical separated area that the hacker can't get to, can't do that. Your device is secure. So, like I said, even if the guest OS gets corrupted, you can rebuild it in a redundant backup and restart the application in an image that has not been contaminated by malware and be back in operation in no time. It is this safe, ultra-secure technology that we have built into our own platform for medical devices. It is used across many vertical markets like automotive, aerospace, military, industrial control, railway, marine, now autonomous vehicles. You don't want to get those hacked. That would be a problem. It supports all of the major microprocessors on the market, supports integration with other popular products, and can be integrated with open source technology and safely integrated with vulnerable commercial operating systems, like I showed. But it protects the network, protects the device, and protects the critical functions of the product. This is what the achievement of a high robustness, secure real-time operating system looks like. It's the same core technology used across all those different industries I mentioned. And in each case, they're customized with components that are built for that particular industry and those particular types of applications. This would include libraries and drivers specific to those applications. There are other RTOS companies that also provide products across industries, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. But the key is that the US government knew from the dawn of the internet that military and aerospace safety critical applications needed to be protected. So they created special certifications for these type of applications that in many cases we don't pay attention to, we don't use. These zero vulnerability operating systems that came out of these certifications and these criteria, these requirements, can be used for robust, safe, and secure embedded designs. High robust real-time operating systems are readily available today in a commercial form that would stop even the most sophisticated cyber criminal dead in their tracks. Historically, product security was much less of a concern, but due to the emergence of the IoT and the criminal element that came with it, priorities have changed for medical device designers. At least they should have. There should be three new priorities. Keeping patients and clinicians safe in all use cases. Keeping electronic health records secure. And keeping the device consistently operational and resistant to any cyber attack. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions for Marty? I've got one for you, Marty.
Yes.
So you were mentioning that the FDA passed this that med device companies have to have, meet certain requirements about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
How do you see, what sort of further role do you see for regulatory bodies regarding cybersecurity? What more do you see needs to be done in terms of?
Well, I think what I see and what everybody else sees, or I think everybody sees different things. The FDA has been told by the current administration that we don't want any more regulations. Well, I understand the point of that, but in this case, people can die. It's like we have autonomous vehicles coming out. You really think about it, do you want that to be unregulated? Of course not, but it is. There's no regulation on autonomous vehicles at this moment, on cars in general. There's standards that they have to live up to, but there's no certification that says you have to do this or you can't go on the road. In aerospace, if you don't have your mission critical components at DO-178B level A, guess what? Plane doesn't leave the ground. That's the way it should be. I don't want that plane coming down and landing on a school with my grandkids in it, or anybody I know, or my house. And medical devices are the same way. You need to be able to trust them. But the FDA is getting stronger. They basically do what they're told and what they choose to do also. And I think that they're moving in the right direction. I don't know if it was a press release or whatever Scott Gottlieb released in October, they hit it on the head when they said, look, you're either going to put devices out that are cyber protected and safe, or we're not going to give you approval. Simple as that. And I think it's going to get stronger and stronger because there's politicians right now in D.C. that are kind of, circling the wagons and getting things going as far as some real hard requirements and certifications.
Yeah. Any other questions for Marty? Great. Thanks, Marty.
Okay. Thank you.